We're here with the Pfaff Motorsports team, or most of it. The rest we're going to cut in as we go. But 2015 winning driver, Chris Green, the 2015 Platinum Cup winning car, and some members of the team. And we're really just here to kind of talk about racing, why we do this, tell you a little bit about what it takes to actually win a championship, and hopefully you'll win something from it. Steve Bortolotti, who's our team manager, maybe I think the best thing to do is kind of tell us how we got to this point before the start of the season, the story of the team.
Well, we started, I guess, in 2014. We brought our operation in-house. We were previously paired with Orey Motorsports. And, after the 2013 season, we thought, there's a great opportunity. There's a lot of passion within our organization to do this with employees and ourselves internally, essentially. So, we're a single car effort, and in 2014, running out of a dually pickup truck and a nice 3-axle trailer, and thought, let's see what we can do on our own. And it turns out we were super competitive all year. Chris gave it his all with some cars that probably weren't the greatest at times, but we kind of learned the new car and doing everything on our own. And luckily, Joe was helping us along for that first season, and came home second in the championship. We had a good season, and then when the time came for 2015, we knew we were going to expand to 2 cars with Orey Fidani, and then it was a matter of growing the personnel, and there was no shortage of people within our organization that were willing to give up their long weekends in the summer to be part of our effort. So then we just kind of invested in a trailer, invested in in the personnel and the property, essentially, I guess, the hardware to make our team competitive.
How many people does it actually take to field a serious racing effort? Let's say on a per car basis.
Never feels like enough. Really, right now, if you think about it, we're about 6.5 people for the team per car, and that includes people who are kind of the unsung heroes who aren't necessarily at the races, but look after a lot of the paperwork that goes on behind the scenes, and catering, hospitality, getting our groceries and water and that sort of stuff that's really easily overlooked. That maybe I'm not at the track, and then when you're at the track, it's just there's never enough bodies around to keep the cars clean, fuel, tires, going through data and setups on the car and that sort of stuff. So.
Chris, tell us the difference. I mean, you started at the beginning of this year. You won the first 2 races. What does it take to plan to win a championship versus winning a race? Obviously one's a much longer term goal, and I think we went into this season with the express goal of winning a championship. What's the difference between winning a race and winning a championship?
It's a great question. It's been a process of 3 years now.
Yeah.
It's been making a lot of mistakes and learning the hard way. Over the past 2 years, I've always been in the position, or 3 years, I've always been in the position to win the championship. And I've lost one, I've fought hard for another one. But coming into this year, I really just took all the advice that the team was able to give me and really work with the team directly, as opposed to saying, I have to do this for my own self to win the race and to do every lap as perfect as possible. I have to listen to the team, listen to what the engineer and the feedback that the team are giving me throughout the race. And if they say, don't fight for position, stay in third, stay in second, don't hunt down first, keep your tires, maintain it. That was the biggest adaptation for me this year, just being able to kind of sit back and let the race carry itself through and bring the car home on a regular basis.
How much conversation is actually going on, over the radio when you're in the car with the team?
It depends. It depends. I mean, there's some jokes that go on at times, but then there's some other stuff that goes on at other times. I mean, it depends on the race.
What sort of things are you talking about when
you're talking about what the other cars are doing on track, lap times, basic information, how much time is left, if there's a spin on track, driver feedback, how the car is doing. I'm telling the team, I feel this about the car, this is what the car is doing at this current moment, how can we do it differently tomorrow? We're always strategizing, but it's basically, this year was more, Chris, don't be dumb. Chris, stay smart. Chris, stay consistent. You're doing well. Don't bother fighting with them. Just keep pressure, but keep pressure from a distance. And that was, really what
pacing yourself.
Pacing myself and just keeping me very disciplined this year. And that's what Joe did such an incredible job with me this year to be able to kind of tame the ego a little bit and just really focus on the championship.
Is most of the conversation over the radio with your race engineer?
It's always with the same person. So Joe is limited to talking to me, and I think Steve was the only one that was able to talk to Orey. Unless there was a pit stop or an incident that something happened on track and we came into the pit, at that point it would be the crew chief that would be responsible for the radio conversation.
I think we have quite a selection of people here that were involved with the race effort. And why don't we start with Caitlin? We'd love to know, tell us a little bit about what your role is in the team and what your average weekend looks like. When does it start? How long are the days? What's kind of involved in your role at the track?
My job is to take care of the tires before they go on the track and then after they come off the track as well. So before going on the track, we have to get them mounted, tape all the wheel weights, mark them, and then clean them up, make sure they look good, of course. And then after the track, the same thing, just opposite. So taking off the wheel weights, cleaning them up, and then checking them out. If we see something that's a concern, giving Andrew or Joe the information, or even Steve, to let them know what we find on the tire and irregular wear. And our race mornings, we basically are up at 6, sometimes earlier. At the track, Kate was sometimes late, sorry everyone. But wait, just as soon as you're at the track, it's just go, go, go. You don't have time really to even go to the bathroom, as we all know. And just
How many sets of tires are you managing through a weekend?
They have 3 sets of slicks and 1 set of rain tires per car.
Per car.
So I was dealing with Chris's car, and then Gerald was doing Orey's car, but we would help each other out. So if he needed help purging the tires, I would help him purge the tires, and he would help me mark the tires. So it was a team effort for sure, even though we dealt with our own cars.
So for every race, you're even setting the car up on a different set of tires, right?
It depends. So we listen to the engineers and the team manager too, depending on if they want to use the old tires, if they're still in good condition, to go out for a few laps, and then that way we can save some tires as well. And then it depends on what the engineer really wants with those tires. So we just report back to him, and if he wants new slicks, he gets new slicks.
Right.
We do have a set of tires that we use throughout the weekend, so we have a fixed datum for our setups as a baseline.
Andrew, well, I think it's a good transition. I think one of the things that really surprised me the most about watching everything that happened at the track this season was how much data you're looking at, the volume of data, all of the different measurements that you're tracking. Why don't you tell us about, just all of the things that you're measuring on the car and what your role is as an engineer to kind of read that data and help make the car and the driver perform better?
Well, like you said, everything has a sensor on it. If Chris or Orey so much as sneeze, I'll see it in the data. I'll see it in the numbers. And with that data, everything from the simple things like throttle and brake application, steering angle input, to more behind the scenes integral sensors like gearbox oil temperature, various pressures, etc., to both maintain the performance of the vehicle itself, make sure everything's running nominally, but also give Chris and Orey feedback and determine what we can do with the setup of the suspension to take a couple of tenths off every time we go out.
Can you give us an example of what you would see in the data that that you would make an adjustment, whether it's to the car or with the driver?
Well, as an easy example, I have individual wheel speed sensors on all 4 corners of the car. So I can see if Chris is overdriving the car, if he's understeering, or if he's locking up a wheel in a certain corner, or spinning a tire in a certain corner, if he's doing that consistently, if it was an anomaly, and I give him that feedback. And together, through his in-car video, with Matt's help, with Chris, his feedback, we look at all of the numbers, all of the information, and we do our best to determine if there's actually a problem with the car, something we can improve on mechanically, or if Chris needs to lay off a little bit, or give it a little bit more, whatever the case may be. We work as a team to find that solution.
One of the things I noticed throughout the season was you were always, between the 2 cars, you're adding tape and removing tape from the radiators.
Of
What
course.
does that do?
So we have a target oil or gearbox oil temperature, engine oil temperature, coolant temperatures, etc. There's a nominal value where we achieve maximum performance, but we don't want to cross that threshold, otherwise we may jeopardize longevity of the system. And that's what we're targeting, to the 10th of a degree. Everything is to the 10th, which a lot of people don't realize. Tire pressures as well. We're adjusting tire pressures to the 10th of PSI. Most people...
What sort of difference does that make?
Well, Chris can tell you, if the tire pressures are off,
Yeah.
you know, he may have a ton of understeer because the front tires are overinflated, or we don't achieve the optimal temperature of the tread of the tire itself, so you don't get as much grip, you don't stick, be slower. It's all a delicate balance of multiple factors, both from performance, feel, and handling.
Tell us about, maybe Steve and Andrew, between the two of you, what setting up the car before each race. You've got this pad with the 4 kind of, you know, weights at each corner. What are you doing before each race to set up the car?
I guess the main thing is we're really looking to make sure our car is compliant within the rule book set up by IMSA. More so for that versus making setup changes to the car. You know, we have limits on everything from camber, ride height, and vehicle weight. So we have to make sure, and that's pretty much it, I think.
Yeah,
Obviously, among other things, but we need to really make sure that our car is compliant with the rules and we're maximizing ourselves within that rule book. I mean, if you see us on a test day, we might not be on and off that pad as often. But then again, we do want to have a consistent place and a perfectly level surface where we are measuring all that information on the car.
I mean, generally, what that pad is 4 separate scales to measure the weight of the 4 different corners of the car. And left to right, front to back, and cross, you want to ensure that you have balance, otherwise the car is going to pull to one side if you had hypothetically all the weight on one side of the car. So ideally, you'd like a 50% weight distribution, but of course we have our special sauce. We know what Chris and Orey like, how they excel, and we'll adapt to a specific circuit, to a specific layout, the conditions of the day, and make changes as necessary.
And the engine being in the wrong place doesn't help. It doesn't help the fact that you'll never get 50-50 weight distribution.
So I think Sasha and Chris, and Ori's not here with us today, and we're gonna patch him in at some point. But you know, he was joining the Canadian GT3 Cup Series. This is his first year. I think we all saw his talent and his confidence really develop over the course of the season. Tell us about the process of developing driver talent and what it takes to do that. What it takes from outside of the car. What did you work on with him? You know, how do you progress a driver from?
Yeah, well, first you have to get to know the driver. You got to get to know what will help them go faster, and every driver's got a different kind of hurdle to overcome. And I mean, Orey hasn't been racing for very long, so it was a steep learning curve, and you know, I got to say, after just working with him a couple of times, he got up to speed to within a couple of tenths of what most of the pro guys would be doing. So it was really impressive. The challenge was getting Orey to get there right away. As soon as he gets out of the pit lane, to get there. So you know, you've got to get to work with the person and know them and try and figure out what's holding them back.
What sort of techniques would you use with him?
Well, one thing is coaching him over the radio when he's on the track, and just inspire the confidence to trust that the grip is there.
And you would be watching him from somewhere.
Yeah, so we'll go to different corners and corner spot and compare his braking zones to other cars on the track, and there are just certain triggers too that you can use to apply that, you know, looking at the data from his early laps to his later laps, you know, as a trend where he's typically leaving time on the table. So just constantly reminding him to push a little bit beyond his comfort zone